Hello and welcome back to my Ranked Team Battle series. Today we look at Steppes. Steppes is one of the most open maps in the game. This reflects in the setups most teams bring to this map, usually lots of light tanks and sometimes even artillery. Heavy tanks only play a minor role. Let's look at this really colorful drawing I've made. What I've been trying to do here is analyze the basic structure of the map. So you have this red marked upper area of the map, which in standard mode is the base of the northern team. In attack defense this is a bit different of course. And you find the same area in the south. Now in these zones you generally have an exchange of fire from the left to the right. You have these elevated positions on both sides which can be used to shoot over to the east. And you can also have the east using the ridge lines to shoot over more to the west. So you have an exchange of fire from east to west and the other way around in both the north and the south base areas. Then you have three corridors connecting those sides of the maps. You have the western side, which is basically a valley allowing you to quickly drive up into the north. You have the middle, which again is just one corridor where you just drive through quickly. Last but not least, there is the eastern side, which is a lot bigger and itself split into two areas. White marked here is the upper zone, where you have lots of hull down cover and ridge lines. And then you have the lower valley, which gives you a more covered approach, but doesn't allow you to snipe anywhere. Since in attack defense mode the spawns are a little bit different from the normal positions, the attacking team obviously gains a quick advantage on the left flank, and the defending team has an advantage on the right flank. However, that doesn't mean you can just continue to march down those sides of the map, because there are strong defending positions at the end of each side. You have these hills here, this area, and also the train line, and the defender can use those positions to ambush the attacker. At the same time, there are these hills in the south, especially this position is extremely strong, but you can also use this or hull down here and here, and the attacker can use those positions to ambush an aggressive playing defender. So marching just through the open will not work out well for you. Let's talk about some key positions on Steppes. Now the first key position for the defending side is this hill over here. This is easy to get. You can just drive there with pretty much any tank, but I recommend a tank with reasonable turret armor. And you can use this position to snipe over the entire right side if the attacker should attempt to go there. This is especially good against heavy tank teams. If you see an attacking team drive lots of IS-3s and stuff like that, they're most likely heading for Cap 2. So it's really good for you to just have a guy sit in this position to defend. A better position of course is up on the hill, but to get up there you need to boost and you need 6 tanks to do this. So you have one guy left for scouting and your other 6 guys need to push one tank up on top of this hill. But once you are on top, you have even better shots at both Cap 2 and also down here, which is really nice. For the attacker there's a similar position on the right flank. You can use this little hill here for hull down cover, allowing you to fire into defending teams on the high ground. I recommend you to not even let the attacker get there in the first place. There are some more nice boosting positions we can talk about on Steppes. First one is this here. If you get up there you have great shots at those tanks here. Since you're elevated so much, it's easy penetrations into the upper plates of poking heavy tanks. Even T-32s can get damaged from there quite easily. There's one little problem. It takes all 7 tanks to boost someone up here, and it takes you quite a while. So if the defender will spot you there, it's really nasty and you will get shot in the side a lot. If you don't want to take the risk or take the time to do this boost, then as an alternative you can just send a tank up here, where you can still get some snipes, not as good however. And you can also go here, but you will get spotted in this position. There's another boost relevant for the attacking team. That is this position up here. If you're afraid of getting ambushed back there, with tanks back here, then you might want to push someone up first, just to hold down this area here. You can hold down up there, and this is a really nice position. If you're not sure if the enemy is actually camping the ridge lines like most teams do, or maybe plays aggressive. Now, one really important thing on steps is the spotting positions and bushes. There are a lot of bushes you have to know and you have to consider. Let's start with the ones usually used by the attacking team. You have these bushes in the middle here. They give you some information about the initial deployment of the defending team, especially you will spot tanks crossing over here, which is nice. You can also go more aggressive and take these bushes here. However, that means your tank is basically stuck there and can't retreat anymore. There is one more position we should talk about. Down here, I've already mentioned this, but let's go into some more detail. This isn't just a spotting bush or just a sniping position, it's basically everything at the same time. You have hard cover, you have a hill, you have a hull down position, you have bushes. It's a really great and strong position. Now you can spot what is happening over here, you can spot if something is coming through the middle, and you also have shots at almost everything that is happening down here. So this is a really strong position and a really nasty surprise for a defending team playing aggressive around the south. If you get ambushed from there, there is almost nothing you can do about this. So how does all this theory crafting translate into actual gameplay? Let's start with the defending side. Like always, the defending side has to consider two cap circles, and basically you have to decide which one of the two cap circles you want to hold and defend, and which one you want to counterattack. So you have two choices here. You can either stay hull down behind the ridge line on the eastern side of the map and defend cap 2. That means your enemy's opening is obviously cap 1. If the enemy is going for cap 1, you will need to counterattack. For example, by spotting here, or by rushing over the A line, or by counterattacking all the way through the south into their backs. That's the options you have. Alternatively, you can try to defend in the northwest, lie in ambush behind the hills or behind the railroads. That means your enemy can't even get close to cap 1, but of course cap 2 is now open, so if the enemy is going for cap 2, you need a strategy to counterattack. You can do that by just going back the way you came, but that takes quite a long time and is easy to counter. You can also try to go through the middle and get in from behind, or you can try to come from around here, play on the outside of this ridge line, but of course that's a little bit dangerous if the enemy still has tanks down here. You can also use the positions up here. I've already shown you, if you boost someone up there, then you can use this to shoot down on cap 2. You can also play artillery, that works very well with a strategy like this, makes it easier to shoot heavy tanks hiding in hull down on cap 2. Now in the replay I'm going to show you, we have decided to go for the eastern side approach. We have most of our tanks staying in hull down positions behind the ridge line in the east. We send one of our light tanks to the south to get some spots and maybe get some early shots at tanks poking at those rocks here. And we just keep our tier 6 light tank in the north to spot cap 1. Now if the enemy should go for cap 1, we have that light tank sitting in the bush, spotting for us, and we can shoot safely from the hull down positions over here. Now the main weakness of this strategy is that a spotting bush like this is rather obvious. A good enemy might identify the bush, blind shoot your tank, and then you don't have eyes on cap 1 anymore. So this is the opening our enemy got here, but at the same time we don't have to worry about cap 2 since all our tanks are already in position to defend. Alright, enough theory, let's see a match. We play with the standard setup, 5 lightweights, a T-32 for staying hull down behind the ridge line, and the 5916 for spotting. I've set up my 5916 for purely passive scouting with the binocs, the camo nets, even got combat rations for better camo and view range. So I'm just gonna take position in a bush here with my 59, spotting the entire north. This is a relatively aggressive bush, it's easy to blind shoot for the attacker. So I'm not gonna stand here for the entire match, but I just want to get some early spots. I've positioned my tank in reverse so I can get out rather quickly out of this bush if I should get shot at. Now at the start we've sent our lightweights to the south to maybe get some early shots there. However, no enemy got spotted, so it's pretty safe to assume the enemy is in fact heading for cap 2. We call back all our tanks to take position behind the ridge line, and aim some shots, since we expect the enemy to get spotted in the north relatively soon. And there we go, RU-251 going for the A2, A3 position. This is a really great spot for a sniping tank like the RU. Good gun depression, very punchy gun with nice penetration. The RU can hull down there and shoot down on all the defending tanks behind the ridge line. Now with the 59, like I already said initially, I don't want to hang around here too long, since I risk getting blind shot. 59 is a very squishy tank, easy to kill, so I'm just getting the hell out of there before I get spotted or hit by blind shots. Of course that means Cap 1 is not spotted anymore, and we also don't have spots on the RU, so we're gonna have to get moving now. We spot the Super Pershing in the middle. It's a bit of an unusual tank choice for this map, but the T-32 Super Pershing can essentially do the same job on steps, so it's not much of a difference there. We send our light tanks to the south, so we can shoot that Super Pershing into the side if he wants to poke the C5 position and intercept our scout. At some point the enemy will most likely start capping on 1, and if they do, we will need to send one of our light tanks, the 59 in this case, into the C line to get spots on Cap 1, and of course the enemy will try to intercept that scout, spotting him with the Super Pershing and probably trying to shoot him from the south, which is why we send all the lightweights to the south here. Only keep the hull down T-32 in the north, and we have all the lightweights in good positions now to open fire on that C line. Shoot the Super Pershing in the side, shoot other tanks in the side that would try to snipe from those positions at D3, C4 and so on. Now since the enemy has started the cap, we sent the 59-16 back. Cap is going, and you shouldn't intercept the cap too late, because at some point the enemy might move additional tanks on the cap, and then it's not 30 or 40 seconds, but it's suddenly down to 10 seconds, and you really don't want that. So you see the 59-16 going into the C line there. We see a lot of tanks getting spotted. We see all the lightweights being lit up, and the Super Pershing pretty much in the open. And we have 4 lightweights down here that can shoot at all those tanks. So we have complete control over the south now. The Super Pershing is actually going forward, trying to kill the 59. But we have lots of lightweights that can shoot him, and the Super Pershing is getting absolutely wrecked. And there he's down, seeing the personal view of my mate Paris Hilton here. And now we're gonna switch back to the 59-16. Going for the spots on Cap 1. There's still a little bit of time, but like I already said, I don't want to wait too long, especially since that Super Pershing is there. I'm going in. I will just take a quick peek over that hill to spot the capper. We know it's most likely the T-37. That should be relatively easy to spot, doesn't have a good camo value. He gets spotted and immediately takes a hit by the T-32, who has already been pre-aiming. So now the cap has been dealt with, the Super Pershing is charging in, 59-16 is taking a couple of hits, but he's actually surviving this encounter with the Tier 8 tank, thanks to all the snipers in the south absolutely destroying the Super Pershing. And now at this point, the enemy doesn't have many options anymore. He can't cap, the T-37 is down to one shot, they have lost a full Super Pershing. A lot of their lightweights have been damaged, but of course the enemy knows we have a lot of light tanks in the south. We are spread out all over the map here. We still have that T-32 hull down in the north, with a couple of tanks all over the map, some lightweights in the south. Now the enemy is most likely going to push forward, since his original plan, capping on 1, has been spoiled. So we have to move our tanks out of the south. We have to simply regroup and hold the line. You can also see the clock ticking down, so the chances of actually capping are not that high anymore for the enemy. For us, that basically means we just have to group up all our tanks, stay together and survive. Be ready to accept and fight off the enemy's last attempt to push into us. We see all the enemy light tanks heading south, and we just group up our tanks. We still have a couple of light tanks in the south. It's time for them to get out of there, but that also means the WZ has no support anymore, so we can simply push forward there with the T-32 and a couple of light tanks, quickly kill the WZ. We go look for the RU in the north, but as it turns out he's not there anymore. He actually moved with the group of light tanks to the south, and there they come, heading straight for Cap 2. We are grouping up all our light tanks. Everyone retreated out of the south in time, so we didn't lose any health there. And now this is a pretty easy game. We just have to stand behind the ridgeline, use our turrets, and we should be able to fight this attack off rather easily. Now the enemy is going for a cap attempt on Cap 2, moving all his tanks in there. But we are already in position to receive that attack. And we are going for the outside ridgeline and for the inside at the same time. So we will sandwich the tanks on the cap. We have the advantage there. They're all sitting in one space. We are attacking from multiple angles, coming around, coming from low, coming from high, getting behind them, just pushing in. And we will take them down in the crossfire one by one. We lose a tank or two, but at this point it obviously doesn't matter anymore. Just a matter of cleaning up. The advantage is too big. We just go in and finish the enemy off. So much for the defending side, but how do you attack? Well, there are two options. If you have a heavy setup, maybe with artillery, you can attack Cap 2, go through the south. For that you would attack like this with your heavy tanks, try to slowly move forward and get them onto the cap circle. You use your artillery to counter the positions over here. If you don't have arty, it's harder to deal with that, then you probably have to go for the outside attack. Keep some tanks back here, maybe even have someone out there. And then you try to take down the tanks in those positions with a crossfire, shooting them from two angles so they can't get into cover. Going for Cap 1 is what you do with a lighter setup. You use a tier 6 light tank with good camo value, so the 5916 or the AMX-12T are the best choices for this. Both have the best camo values of their tier 6 light tanks. You get on the cap, don't go into the most obvious spots, so don't sit exactly here or like that, because that's easy to blind shoot. So take a spot that's less obvious, start capping while the rest of your tanks has to be covering you. So for covering the capping tank, you probably want a tank over here. You probably want a tank over here to intercept and spot the light tank coming in. And now this is important. If there is a light tank going in there, you need to deal with him, because he can poke and spot the guy on the cap every time. So you need some tanks in the south here and here, for example, to shoot over there and kill that tank. If you have some tanks left, you can position them positions like here or here, where they can simply snipe and support your team. Don't think you have to win by cap. You can also just use the cap to force the enemy to come out, show himself and receive damage. And then you slowly work the enemy down, and at some point you might actually want to push in and go forward, kill some tanks. So this is what an attacking strategy could look like. We send most of our tanks to the north. We start capping with the tier 6, have tanks in position to snipe, like already mentioned, and we keep a couple of tanks in the south to shoot a tank over here. But don't think too static on steps. It's a map where you have to move a lot, where you have to rotate a lot. That's the reason why you pick all those light tanks. Most good teams will choose to go with 5, 6, sometimes even 7 light tanks. There isn't too many light tanks on this map. Sometimes you want to go a bit more heavy, especially on the defense, or if you try to attack through the south, but don't bring more than maximum 3 heavy tanks. That usually doesn't work. Let's watch the replay. We are going with a pretty normal setup, rather similar to our defending setup. We have an IS-3 instead of the T-32 to go through the middle and intercept the enemy scout, but that doesn't really make a huge difference. You can also play this with a T-32 or even go full light tank. The other difference is the use of the RU-251 instead of one of the lightweights. The reason for this is the better accuracy, the better rate of fire, gun depression, and most importantly penetration on the heat round of the RU-251. We can use them up on the A line to snipe down at the heavy tanks being hull down behind the ridge line. The RU is much better in that position than the lightweight. Now we don't expect the enemy to push us with the slow T-32s, so we just go forward, take our positions quickly. I'm firing a couple of shots with the 5916 to lower my camo value and see if I get spotted using the Sixth Sense. By a process of elimination, you can figure out that way if there is an enemy in any of the bushes that you can see me blind shooting. The rest of our light tanks is also firing a couple of shells into the bushes. Now at the same time, a group of light tanks is moving up the one line. We want to get the RU in the sniping position as quickly as possible and try to spot the enemy T-32s. We're carefully poking there, taking another couple of blind shots just to be sure that the Type 64 isn't in a bush over there. Carefully moving our way forward while the IS-3 is making his way through the middle. Using our Sixth Sense, we already know that the Type 64 is not on A4 or A5 since no one got spotted, so the only place he could be is C5, C6, or he is not in a bush at all. Now the RU-251 is moving up to the sniping position I've mentioned. As you can see, it's a great position to have a good overwatch over the battlefield. And you can use the gun depression to hide most of your tank there. With the accurate, powerful gun of the RU, you can inflict a lot of damage to any enemy tank poking over that ridgeline back there. Now the 5916 has started the cap. And we just want to make the enemy come out, poke over, the T-32s get spotted. Now T-32s hull down are very hard targets, but over the long time RU and the lightweights in the south can get some shots into their turret sides and maybe do a little bit of damage. Now the Type 64 goes forward and I immediately abandon the cap with the 5916. As we can see, he got damaged, so two lightweights must have hit him with some blind shots earlier in the game. Now we want to take out the Type 64 and we can't do that from this position. So we move some light tanks to the south so we can shoot him. As you can see, there's a lot of cover, both hard cover and bushes in this area, and it's very hard to take out that type. But we need to take him out as he can poke every time to spot our 59 on the cap. Now our lights going to the south have been spotted. That means the type has to get out of there. He cannot stay. Unfortunately, we won't be able to kill anything in the south, but our tanks there make the type move. So he tries to escape and gets taken down. Now with the majority of our tanks being spotted in the south, the enemy is actually coming forward, no longer camping with the T-32s, and they are pushing towards the IS-3. They haven't calculated with the RU up on the A-line who's shooting them in the sight, but unfortunately he gets attacked by a lightweight. Now this is where the enemy could have actually won that game if they had sent 2 or even 3 lightweights up on the A-line, but they did not. So our 5916 can back up the RU up there and help taking down the lightweights, and our RU survives with just a slither of HP left. And now it's looking really bad for the enemy. The heavy tanks in the center of the map are surrounded. They have an IS-3 behind them. They are getting attacked by a swarm of light tanks and the RU is still alive to shoot them in the sight. We're closing in from all sides and the T-32s will die very quickly. One is down, one to go, but he won't survive very long either. So it's 4-0 at this point and we just need to go forward and clean up. The lightweight is running away, but he has no chance with all the tanks coming right behind him. So like I have already mentioned, if you go cap on steps, you don't actually want to win by cap. Sure, that might happen sometimes if your enemy is really slow with the reaction, but usually you won't be able to go through full cap. Rather, use the cap to make your enemy move. Go on the cap, force your enemy to do something about it, go forward, expose himself so he takes damage, and then just back off from the cap before you get shot. This is a perfect example for this strategy. I didn't actually get shot on the cap at all, I just made the enemy move and that forced them in the open where we could take them down in the crossfire. I hope with this video, it was a bit on the long side, you reached a better understanding of steps. Good luck on the battlefield. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. You can also find us on Twitch and Facebook where we do regular giveaways. Thanks for watching.